You know, I have to say, when I see all these young people, the future of Tigray, I have more hope, more energy, more dreams. So I'm excited. I'm so glad to be here, by the way.
That deserves a round of applause just for you guys, because I agree. I agree. I think we're just going to go move on to our next segment, which is our elderly panel. We have three amazing guests that are going to be joining me on stage today. If you could introduce yourselves and let our audience know who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
My name is Burhane Gabra Christos. What am I?
What do you do? If it's not who are you, it's what do you do?
You know, I joined the fighting, the past fighting, the 1970s, 1980s war in Tigray. I was a freedom fighter. And my career has been diplomacy. So since 1979, I have worked in diplomacy. Initially for the TPLF and for the EPRDF. And then after the end of the war, I was ambassador here in Washington, then ambassador to the European Union, ambassador in China, and I served as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and a minister. That's what I did.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Now I'm representing the government of Tigray.
Thank you so much for joining us. And if you can introduce yourself as well.
Good evening. And, you know, I have to say, when I see all these young people, the future of Tigray, I have more hope, more energy, more dreams. So I'm excited. I'm so glad to be here, by the way.
That deserves a round of applause just for you guys, because I agree. I agree.
My name is Siyum Berhe. I have been most of my life here. I came as a scholarship student. I was upstate New York in a freezing cold, coming from Tigray to Niagara Falls. It's not easy. I studied history. My graduate degree was in educational administration. And then I hate war, so guess what? I went to George Mason, 2019. There is no age in education, you know. I got my conflict resolution certificate from there. I am now state coordinator for Virginia. That means I'm in charge of refugees that come to Virginia, working with federal government, but my responsibility is Virginia. They have also given me now director of New Americans, meaning legal, illegal, everything. So that's my job. And yes, I'm from Tigray. Originally, I am also Irob, so I speak Saho and Tigrinya, hopefully equally. Well, not quite sure. So.
Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
All right, I'm here because the number of guests have to be three, so I'm here.
You didn't have to call me out.
All right, so my name is Dada. Starts with D, ends with D. Maybe the shortest. I think it's also very unique. I've never met anyone who is called Dada.
Me either.
This time. So I've been a journalist for the longest part of my life, my profession. I also heard he was mentioning George Mason. I went to that school for public policy. So I was in all media, the print, broadcasting, radio for a while. I used to work for Voice of America and for the Ethiopian television and also for the print. I had a very cozy discourse. So you have to like it. Discourse, if you have come across, I don't know, it wasn't very public, I mean, well circulated, but it was a high profile journal I used to edit. And now I'm with the TMH, trying to contribute something in our situation. That's me.
Thank you guys, all three of you guys, so much for joining us. As I mentioned before we started, guys, I really would love for you guys to be engaged with me and them within this segment because it's so important. I feel like there's a lot to learn from each individual on this platform. But I will start the conversation, and I'll just dive straight deep into it, right? So my first question for you, all three of you, and you can individually answer to your liking, is, as you mentioned, you were a freedom fighter to the previous fight with the Derg regime as well. And Tigray has been invaded countless times now, and has been at war for years, even though we've come to pass and come above it. We found ourselves back to another just causeless war, right? So why aren't we learning from our past? And have we currently learned from our current invasion as well?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You know, the previous war of the 1970s and 80s was to bring out the people of Tigray from extremely wretched poverty. The level of poverty is unimaginable. You know, Tigray is, you know, underdeveloped and poor. But the level of poverty in the 70s and today, it's day and night. I mean, it was worse. People didn't have food, not only have food. You know, you would see majority of Tigrayans walking barefoot. And you would see, what do you call it, quilt? Kind of clothes that you would see anybody wearing would be like quilt, having different colors, because they wouldn't afford to have a decent clothes. And most of our population, you know, let me say this, let me not go into the details, but one thing that impacted me most when I was a fighter was when I went to lowlands. You know, in the lowlands, you usually had malaria. So when I go to a village, some village in the lowlands, I would find the entire population in the village sleeping on the floor in their houses. Kids, elderly, young, everybody. Now, people never saw a tablet, didn't even know what a tablet is in majority of Tigray. In the village, they never, let alone have a medicine. They would not even, they didn't even have concept of a tablet. So this was a kind of situation that they were in, and there were no factories. We had only one factory in Tigray, and that's a grinding mill. And that was located in, higher type of grinding mill that would, that's an ordinary one at today's standard, and it was located in Kwiha. There were some grinding mills here and there, but a kind of advanced kind of grinding mills. That's the only factories that we had in Tigray. So it was under these circumstances that we fought. And definitely the Tigrayan people have made advances and have secured their rights. But we are back here because of very many reasons. One, what had been done in Tigray, in Ethiopia as a whole, was something that would pull Ethiopia out of poverty, put Ethiopia at an advanced level in 3 decades at least, into a modern nation. That was a challenge. That generated a lot of challenge internally and externally. And the leadership didn't have the capability. It's not, don't take the leadership as only a Tigrayan leadership. I mean, the TPLF leadership, it was the EPRDF leadership. It had its own dynamics, it had its challenges, it had its own difficulties, and it was not able to lead. So the challenge that we're coming from inside Ethiopia and outside pulled it back, and we are at the situation where we are in. So, and at the same time, the world had changed. The world has been changing very fast. That change, to some extent, was not favorable to what was taking place inside Ethiopia. So a combination of all these factors brought the difficulties that we are in. Have we learned from this? Yes. Especially you have to learn a lot from this experience. There will be, I hope there will be chances and opportunities to discuss with you on these issues broadly. I mean, this is a very broad area, which would be very difficult to discuss. But I'm sure you'll be interested, but we can discuss some other time on range of issues that we have experienced, and we can share our experiences. But I should say I'm extremely proud of you. Those ones who presented here, you've really shown us how capable you are. And we should tell you that we're extremely proud of you guys. You've been doing an amazing job. Those ones who presented today. You know, the initiatives that you have been taking, the talents that you have, the creativity that you have is extremely, what can I say? I'm extremely proud of you all. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yesterday I was at ODU, Old Dominion University, and I was talking to university students, PhD candidates. None of them could compare with you. I'm not just saying this because they were talking, they were born here, they were just like you. But the capacity I saw here is really impressive. I see you on demonstrations and I'm always proud, but no, this is deeper. This is tomorrow. So why the heck do we have all these wars? In general, I would say it's almost human nature, just generally. But why Tigray? One, I really want you to remember, we have never invaded anybody. Yes, during Aksumite Empire, we have crossed the sea. We did what we needed to do.
And got the job done.
You know, we did the job. But now, we get invaded. We get harassed for many reasons. One, I'm sure some of you have seen, internationally, they were picking the toughest communities around the world, the warriors. We're number 2 in the world. So yes, when we get invaded, when we are attacked, it's human nature. Flee, what do you call 3 Fs? You either freeze, you flee, you fight. We fight. Sorry. But this time, we were on the verge of moving into certain level of economic capacity. You go to Mekelle, you see this urbanization, the economic development. When we were right there on a takeoff is when we got hit. So there might be some jealousy. They know our history. Maybe they think if we get enough food and enough industry, we might be a little bit rough. I don't know. Now, what do we learn? Ambassador have to be diplomat. I am not. So what did we learn? We're never going to be foolish again. Never again comes to Tigray right now with this generation. Security. We know our enemies now. We want to live in peace, absolutely. We have no animosity towards even those who are hurting us. But one lesson for me, And I have been saying this for a long time, so I'm going to say it public. We need to know how to shut our gate. We need to be the best security system. And if we don't do that, we're going to go through it again. So that's what we learned for me.
Thank you.
All right. I won't go long because young people don't like long speeches, but it's also mostly said. By the way, I just came from Richmond. It's not like us who drove like just a couple of miles. He drove 100 miles. Is it 100 miles?
Yes.
Just
a little over, actually.
And then he will go back. He is that much in love to see young people and engaging them. So a couple of applause for him, I think.
Absolutely.
All right, why are we falling into cyclical war now and then? Well, I want to emphasize, I mean, there could be just a number of, and there hasn't always been one reason for wars. There are always many. But I want to emphasize, and I think I did this one many times, is the narrative stuff. We controlled power, all the deep state functionaries, as you know it, but we failed to control the narrative, and we always leave it for others. And then it's always easy to get back to power if you control the narratives. We haven't been doing that, and you can know it from the way we manage business, the way we have a focus on the media infrastructure, how we protect our history, and then from, it's been stolen by others, but we don't really care to balance it with them. And then we are always subject to rude awakening all the time. And then I think, do we sometimes take it easy because we win all the wars? So that no matter if they come, we will win it anyway. Is it the kind of mindset we have? I sometimes think like that. Anyway, but we really have to focus this time because wars are all the time costly. I mean, that's very obvious. It takes lives, but the kind of war we faced this time is a total war. That has to have to do to the way Tigrayans react, because the enemies also must have predicted that we will fight back, and then they wanted to go to the scene of excess all the time. Just everybody has to be wiped out. And the devastation that put us into is tremendous. It will take a lot of things to come back, and one of the things is things you guys are trying to do. So obviously we will come out of it, but how do we put the reservoir to remember it? I want to tell you this, all the monuments we have is, for example, I had a guest I interviewed last time that maybe our ancestors knew that we would be forgetful. That's why they left us the monuments standing, so that we don't forget. Because everything that was given to us in papers, in oral literature, are all forgotten. Experiences are forgotten. So they gave us those, unmistakable standing monuments. So why don't we have, for example, I'm told by a historian, Ethiopia fought like 25 international wars with outsiders, and then 22 or 21 of them were fought in Tigray, almost all. But the only standing monuments we have are the Aksumite, the ancient heritages. We don't have monuments for our heroes, for the fallen, for the atrocities, except the Adahaki one that came recently. So that also shows how we forget stuff so easily. And then that gets me back to the narrative thing. We have to really work hard on the narrative, the story. We have to keep the story. And as you know, it's not only that stories also help us. They are really a material ground also to grow, but also to remember stuff. I think I went long against my promise.
We are all ears. Thank you so much, Dada. I do have a follow-up question for you, and then I'll open it up for the audience for you guys to ask a couple of questions before I move on with mine. But you hinted towards that TPLF, while they were in power, were still under EPRDF, right? And there's this narrative, especially now that we've heard over and over again, it's the 27 years of power that we've utilized and apparently oppressed others in the process. Is that true, or is that a propaganda that was spewed by the opposition?
Well, that's a propaganda. Why do I say that? You know, it's the problems that we have today in Ethiopia emanates from issue of state building. Previously, under the EPRDF, you know, previously Ethiopia was highly centralized, had extremely centralized Unitarian system of governance. So during the EPRDF, Ethiopia was decentralized. People were given opportunities to rule, to self-rule, and commonly rule at the center as well. So this team that came to power, this group of people that came to power today, wanted to have a highly centralized system of governance like that we had pre-1991, pre-EPRDF. So they wanted to abolish federalism. This is the major problem that we have today. In order to do that, you know, doing that, unwinding the federal system and the constitution is not an easy affair. It's a very difficult one, because around 80 groups in Ethiopia, majority of them, like 79 or 80 of them, want federalism, want self-rule. So this government wants to abolish that. They don't have support for that. And what happens is, in order to have a centralized government, they had to hit on the TPLF and hit on the people of Tigray, because they believe that the major resistance would come from Tigray. That's why they target the people of Tigray today. If they get abolish of the Tigrayan people and if of its leadership, then it would be easy to form or to have a highly centralized system of governance. So in order to do that, with what I said previously, I'm not going to go back to what I said initially, you know, during the first statement that I made. I'm not going to go back to that. So what they are doing is they are focusing, you know, not only internally, even externally. If you hear Eritrea's statement, the president focused on having a Unitarian system for Ethiopia. The others that have been collaborating with the government have been looking into having not a federal system, but a Unitarian system. So this is the reason why they focus on the TPLF and on the Tigrayan people. So if they subdue the Tigrayan people, it would be easy for them to have a highly centralized system of governance. But it's not only the people of Tigray that are resisting against centralization. I mean, highly centralized system. It's Oromos, it's the Benishangulis, it's the Sidamas, it's the, everybody is resisting. It's the Afaris, everybody is resisting against that. But they focus on the TPLF, and the people of Tigray due to their
Resilience.
their resilience and their resistance to highly centralized system of governance.
Thank you so
for
much.
this, they have campaigned a lot, and they have put the narrative, as Dada said.
Right.
Narrative is an issue here again.
If you guys have anything to add on to that as well.
I just want to, I think what the ambassador said and Daddy said, I think genocide, if you look at Germany, if you look at Rwanda, if you look everywhere, there is a systematic step-by-step getting to genocide. You have to demonize the people you want to destroy. What has happened, where the biggest mistake of EPRDF, in my view, was exactly the narration. And you know what? The 27 years of darkness, now they have light? Are you kidding me? So when they make us look like devils, a deacon in the Orthodox Church is calling us devils, so all that is very orchestrated because we touched on the interest of few dominant ethnic groups. Where in Ethiopia, I'm a history junkie, so in Ethiopia, there was clearly one dominant ethnic community that felt, I am Ethiopian and you all have to sound like me. And after the Adwa War, sending Kenyazmachis and Grazmachis and occupying lands around and making the empire all inclusive, but under them, now EPRDF comes and they screwed up something for them. You're all the same. That's a very tough message. So in EPRDF, instead of continuing on that, now Tigray gets to be blamed for literally everything. The 27, and you heard, I'm sure you have heard, you know, an innocent general is put in prison because he bought a ship or an airplane with nothing to show for. So they made, when they controlled the media, they basically created facts out of nothing, and now we are yek and zibboch, whatever they call it, like meaning hyenas, hyenas, meaning thieves, killers, and the Ethiopian public bought that. So when they invaded us, it wasn't just that dominant group that came to Tigray. From everywhere. And then, of course, they went and dismantled Somali region easy. They actually, I think they were hoping to come to Tigray and do that. Well, we don't quite go that way, do we? So, really, I think it was the messaging and this genocide demonizing us. And I'm sorry to say, I think many people bought it. My issue is not just with Abiy, a leader. I've said this before. A leader is really a mirror of the public. I am sorry, but they joined with him. Many. I'm sorry, it sounds so cruel. But I don't think it's Abiy and few people. So.